in the immortal words of the Budweiser, was it a newt or a lizard? I don't know. WhatsApp. Oh, I've wanted to do this for a long time. It finally makes a lot of sense. What's the worst WhatsApp thing that you've ever seen? Is this it? Is this the worst farrago in WhatsApp history?
No.
No?
Not even close. Not even remotely close to the worst WhatsApp farrago that has existed or that you could possibly imagine. This is a non-WhatsApp story.
Come on. I give you the fact that it's Roy Keane who is the star of the WhatsApp. This is not like some common or garden mediocre sports person, some American footballer who's got roid rage. This is actually one of the most explosive volcanic personalities in world sports history.
Yeah.
He's up there with Maradona in terms of volcanicity, whatever that word is.
It's high profile. It's not bad. Stephen Ward has done nothing wrong in his WhatsApp voice message. He has done nothing wrong. He's told the story. He's told his version of events as truthful as he has heard it. Like, as far as he's aware, everything he's said is accurate. In fact, after listening to the WhatsApp clip, Stephen Ward would make a pretty good journalist. He'd be an excellent reporter. It was facts, facts, facts. No editorializing with tone. Maybe a little bit of editorializing with tone, but not too much editorializing with tone. And it was accurate. It was informative. It was entertaining. And it was thoroughly by the book. It was fair game, and his friends screwed him over. Stephen Ward has done nothing wrong here.
Okay, so, I mean, mostly what you say is true. He's committed no crime. This is the victimless, absolutely victimless crime. I mean, you know, we'll get into Harry Arter and Roy Keane and their relationship in a couple of minutes' time. But also, Keane backed down from a confrontation. That was a kind of underreported part of it. There's about 12 different parts of this that we have to break down 30 second by 30 second by 30 second by 30 second. But why the hell are you recording a WhatsApp which you know all anybody has to do is go select, share, and off it goes, like the little birds from the Lord of the Rings, from Game of Thrones, the little birds going out into the world.
Three-eyed ravens. Because you're excited. You've just seen one of the most...
He's not excited. He's calm. He's reporting. It's post-fact. It's like, here, Wardy, what's going on there? What's the story with that? Like, this is all a bit weird, isn't it? Why is Arthur gone from the squad?
His reporting...
But it must have just been in the last couple of days, because it only happened yesterday.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He thought that he was in confidence. He thought he could trust his friends or whatever WhatsApp group he was sending it to. He thought wrong. It was a little bit naive, but that's as far as I would go. That's as completely... And to say that Stephen Ward owes them an apology, to say that Stephen Ward has apologised, is a nonsense. Why are you apologising, Stephen?
Well, you know, I mean, you're breaking the emerge of the camp.
To save yourself.
You're breaking the emerge of the camp. The camp is supposed to be sacrosanct. Fights happen all the time, and the camp is the camp, and like no one is really supposed to know what goes on. Now, we all know that's a lie. We know everybody is telling everybody everything. But if you are telling them that, tell them like in a Snapchat or something, or like what's the other one, the new one that everybody's using?
Instagram?
No. You talk amongst yourself there for a minute, and I'll find a Telegram.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah.
I actually don't know what Telegram is.
Look, the two lads have not a clue.
Telegram used to be used in like the 1800s. Sure. Oh. Lol. Stephen, like just... I don't know what point you were trying to make there.
Make it in a disposable way that's going to self-destruct in 5 seconds. You go
write a letter.
Here's no, like,
and then burn
like an old school Snapchat message, which would have deleted itself, right?
You can screenshot a WhatsApp, Snapchat message. And how is he supposed to?
It's not the audio. Come on, you're actually literally giving everybody. It's on the Irish Times website. You did not expect that to happen, but it can always happen.
How are you supposed to tell a tale as enthralling as the one Stephen Ward told via Snapchat? WhatsApp was the only medium by which this was possible. Now, granted, it was also one of the media with which this could have spread like wildfire, which it subsequently did before lunchtime yesterday morning. So he let himself down there. He could have selected a better medium maybe, but I don't really know what it was. Maybe an email, but he lets himself down to being screenshotted. He could have also denied it was his voice. Martin O'Neill said yesterday he was in touch with Stephen Ward.
All he had to do was say, here, listen, that's not me. That's like some bad impressionist. Who's actually a very good impressionist.
Because that's the first thing I thought when I was listening to it. I was like, this is too sensational to be Stephen Ward. There is no way this is Stephen Ward. And then it just goes on and on and on. And it's like, nah, this impression is way too good to not be Stephen Ward. It is Stephen Ward, without question. So yeah, like I think fair play to him for telling the story to his mates. You know, you've got to confide in somebody. If you go home, if you leave the dressing room, you're injured, you're going to tell somebody those extraordinary events. So his friends have screwed him over. It's shame on them. They should be owing Stephen Ward an apology. Roy Keane and Martin O'Neill should be apologising to the relevant parties. Martin O'Neill for allowing Roy Keane to get out of hand to this extent. Roy Keane for what he said. Stephen Ward absolved of blame as far as I'm concerned.
He did break the omerta of the camp.
What omerta? Omerta is bullshit though. That's the sort of thing that kind of allowed EPO to flourish in the cycling.
No, they're
cycling,
different.
So.
Like one is actually like criminal / cheating behaviour. The other is just like, we have a bond here that we're not going to... team spirit, as Tommy's shouting in my ear. Team spirit! I mean, it matters a little bit. When you think about it, the team are supposed to rely on each other, but they're looking back on, I wonder is Wardy going to stick that on WhatsApp?
Like, you've just seen one of your teammates called a prick, a wanker, and a see you next Tuesday. Like, you're going straight onto WhatsApp to tell your mates immediately.
It's not great for team spirit, is it?
No, it's not. Exactly.
It's not helping team spirit.
I think there's one person who's let down team spirit there, and it's not Stephen Ward.
Okay. I think Stephen Ward, poor Stephen Ward, he's probably had enough of a shoe in here.
Like, when you say poor Stephen Ward, another man who's actually, in a very weird way, who's getting a bit of my sympathy this morning, is Roy Keane. Because when you think about it, his managerial career is screwed. He's never going to get... as soon as somebody realises what's going on here, it would be a very brave man or woman to employ Roy Keane for their football club or for their country.
Would it?
Well, I think so.
Like, he's called a kind of... He's called two of his players to task for not training.
Well, actually, let's get into that a little bit. The whole sort of thing was... Is Harry Arter taking this too much to heart, or is Roy Keane being too aggressive? Because if you listen to the tone, and I'm sure everybody's heard it by now, of the Stephen Ward WhatsApp, it was very much, it's Roy being Roy. And it was, when I said he editorialised with tone a little bit, what I meant by that was that he was saying it in a way which was sort of jovial. It wasn't like, this was a horrifying event. It was in a jovial tone. So Stephen Ward certainly thinks, this is crazy, this is unreal. Whereas Harry Arter has clearly been deeply offended by this. Declan Rice, it has been suggested, was deeply offended by this. And maybe they've taken this too much to heart, because Stephen Ward doesn't take it too much to heart, clearly. He's happy enough to tell his mates about it. But Harry Arter, he's left the squad.
Yeah. Kev was on telly last night talking about this and was like, look, we need to hear from Harry Arter. Harry Arter hasn't yet spoken about this, but like, we know Harry watches this show, and so Harry, come out and tell us exactly what you think. Come out and tell us exactly what happened. We've heard now a version of events which is Stephen Ward's version, which is out there. It's printed word for word in the newspapers today. As I said, the audio is on the Irish Times website. It's like, it's completely mental. I don't remember a story like this.
It's amazing.
Because it's kind of a nonsense. It is kind of a nonsense story. It's like, all it's doing is confirming a few of the rumours that were out there.
Yeah.
And it's not actually as salacious as you think. Like, there's a row, there's another row. The same person is involved in 2 rows. It's a person who has been involved in a lot of rows before. Not that big a deal.
No, like, I know we kind of went down a tangent there of Harry Arter small bit, but just to kind of bring it back just a tiny bit, just to that point about Roy Keane and his future managerial career, it might be right in what you're saying, but the reason why I feel a small bit of sympathy for him is that his managerial career is going to be judged by what he's done as an assistant manager. And like, the whole situation sort of reminds me of like the bully in the Breakfast Club, who's like sitting there in detention and just doesn't know what to do with himself, so he starts picking on people. Like, Roy Keane is probably sitting around there and is like, well, I've laid out all the cones, or whatever he does. I don't know what he does in Ireland camp. And he's like, well, there's an easy target there, a man with an English accent who's injured. I'm going to call him a prick and a wanker. And you know, that's obviously not his thought process, but that's what it might look like to some. So he's just sitting around there, and ultimately he's not actually being given the reins of a club, or not being given the reins of a country in this case. And it seems that people are going to judge him for this, and you've got to have a little bit of sympathy for that situation, no?
John Bender was the bully in the Breakfast Club.
Nobody remembers his name.
I didn't remember. I had to look it up.
I presume he looks a lot different. Like, that guy, John Bender, by the way, was like 40 years old playing.
Yeah, no, it's mad. I mean,
I don't know. Like, I do feel a bit of sympathy for Roy because of this. It's like, at least judge him on what he's done as a manager. Whereas, like, this is going to be a huge black mark against him when he is judged in the future.
I think this is the archetypal of the storm in a team. Either they write it out and it's grand, or they resign because results have gone badly and they've decided that they don't want to take the team through to the Euros. But they clearly want to take the team through to the Euros. O'Neill was pretty defensive yesterday. He was saying that he's bringing loads of players through. He was saying that he's giving loads of new caps to young players. They're at a transitional period at the moment, and ultimately it's only the Nations League of European Cups. So he doesn't seem to care about it as much as some of the other countries seem to care about it. Anyway, here is O'Neill yesterday speaking at the press conference when the question was asked, what's up?
First of all, I don't think Stephen was there. Stephen wasn't actually there, so I think he's just picking up on things, something that we talked about at the beginning of the week. Probably not anything more to really report. I think that differences of what was said. I think I mentioned that to you before. Definitely, as I said too, confrontation obviously with John and confrontation with Harry. John's fine, absolutely fine. Harry perhaps not so fine.
Yeah, then he went on to say, Harry has let it be known to some other people that there are other reasons why he's not involved in the squad. Now, no one knows what those other reasons are, and Martin O'Neill seems to be the only person really who has any access to that. There were some suggestions that he wanted to concentrate on his club career because he's on loan at Cardiff, but that has not been officially said. That has not been briefed that we know, as far as we know, to other journalists. So, as Kev said last night, Harry, come on out and tell us what the crack is. Irish football, we're going to give out our first awards of the season. It's the 2018 GAA MTs. Maura Tracy-Kelly was our reporter for the summer and was high up and low down, east and west, talking to the GAA public and the performers, managers, players right across the course of the season, and she's going to hand out her awards around about 8:20 this morning. WhatsApp Gate. Oh, there's a better name in one of the papers. There's a better name in one of the papers. We're going to get to that in a minute. And actually, in fact, right now, we're going to take you to the sports pages.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
What percentage of our audience do you think we lose when we say you need to mind the little ears in your car? Okay, tell us. No, I'd say, well...
What percentage do we gain is what I want to know.
Because you turn it off, right, if your kid's in the car, because you literally can't turn around and put your fingers in your ears.
That's true, yeah. So that's probably not a great business move when you're telling people to just turn off. I'd say just curse and scar those kids.
Will we do F Pritz, or will we do the full? I mean, I don't feel like it's safe to drop a C-bomb even on the internet.
It's never safe to drop a C-bomb, is it?
Tommy the dad outside was like, don't say that. Right, okay, so there'll be no or C-bombs dropped on the show this morning. So it's safe for your children to listen. There's a great picture on the front of the Irish Independent. So that's the back. Let's stick the back up back there, and I'll do the back first then. You're a effing Eurus. You don't even care. You don't want to train. Leaked ward message reveals Ireland's assistants fury at Arthur and Walters, but O'Neill hopes for reconciliation. Is there a way back for Keane? Not for Harry Arthur. Is there a way back for Roy Keane? Is the question on the back of the Irish Independent this morning. The picture on the front has Roy Keane, full King Lear on the Heath, mad beard. Not shaved in 4 days. Not trimmed. No.
The beard was more outrageous a couple of years ago, no?
It was, yeah. It was like when the book was coming out, when he was doing that interview with Kev.
Yeah. Things were pretty rosy in his life at that point.
But the eyes are clear eyes, full heart.
Can't lose. It turns out they can lose, and quite heavily.
Yeah, he can't lose though. He's grand. He's gone all right.
Well, we were just making this point. Do you really think he's grand? Do you actually think he's going to come out of this fine?
I think that Roy Keane's future is as a football pundit on telly, being Roy Keane.
Okay.
And I think that BT will pay him a lot of money. Eventually, when they get around to it, they will pay him a lot of money to do that. And he will be a very different type of pundit to anything that English football has ever had, but kind of fairly similar to the type of football pundits that we've had here.
Yeah.
And he'll be astoundingly good at it, and it'll be...
But more informed.
It'll be the type of box office... Well, not more informed than John Giles, really. Not really that much more informed than Dunphy, really. Just updated information, but not more informed, I don't think.
I would say Roy Keane's very, very well informed. I'm not saying he's more or less informed than Giles or anything, but...
I would say...
Other pundits.
I'd say that, in how relevant is this information about the Manchester United dressing room now? And after that, it's style of play and pattern of play and how tactical nuance I'd say fairly similar.
Okay, but Roy Keane doesn't want a future in punditry and punditry.
No, but
only.
you don't get what you want in this life.
So you think his footballing career in football, in a club or at an international level is over?
I thought that he was going to get the Ireland job after O'Neill went. If O'Neill had gone in the summer, is it possible that Roy Keane would be the current Republic of Ireland manager? What's more likely, Roy Keane or somebody else?
Yeah, true. If he had taken that Stoke job, Martin O'Neill,
yeah,
chances are Roy Keane would have stood up, taken that job, and it would have been for a stopgap period of time. But
it would have been for the 2 years, right?
Maybe we'll never know. But he was going to get trusted with the reins for the Nations League if Martin O'Neill had stepped into the Stoke job. And who knows what sort of different character we would have seen at that point. We never would have perhaps had that bust up before the USA game. He would have been the manager. He wouldn't have, as I said earlier on, he wouldn't have had idle time. And maybe he doesn't have idle time. Maybe this isn't due to boredom. Maybe I'm being too kind to him on that. But it does seem that he's kind of taken it upon himself to be the guy that gets inside the minds of players, that is going to motivate them, that is going to make them fight for the green jersey. And he's overstepped that line, it seems, in the view of Harry Arter and perhaps Declan Rice. We don't know the exact situation with Declan Rice, but in the view of Harry Arter, it seems, he has overstepped that line. Now, the thing is, that is the view of one person. That is the only confirmed view. But Stephen Ward yesterday, it's kind of like, haha, Roy being Roy. So there is kind of a 3D element to the whole thing.
I mean, it's amazing. It's so.
There's more than 3D. It's probably about 10-dimensional, to be honest.
Yeah. So one of the other things that happened, so the press conference yesterday was David Myler and Martin O'Neill, and O'Neill at the very first minute of it starts talking about how there's competitions all the time. I had a competition with this man, was it 2 days ago? And Myler pipes up on us Friday. And so then obviously that was the broadcast part. We'll bring you that a little bit later on, but just the written part of it is Myler and O'Neill open up on their training ground row in the aftermath of the Cardiff loss. Naturally enough, David Myler's going, why the hell was I not playing? Look at the team you have out there. I mean, I'm not going to name any names, but I can name about 6 names that David Myler would be fairly confident he's better than that started that game. Myler admitted his disappointment that his omission from the Ireland side led to a training ground row with Martin O'Neill in Cardiff on Friday. The source of this story coming into the public domain was O'Neill, who chose to make it public as he dealt with the continuing fallout. This is genius media management from Martin O'Neill. Again, when you hear it, he filibusters, refers to Brian Clough. You can play bingo with the press conferences now where it's talk. I'm glad you asked me that. It's very important that I say this. This thing happened, but then in my youth, this thing, other thing, just completely unconnected happened. Clough anecdotes, back to modern day footballer. Talk about the record in the Euros. We qualified for the Euros, but the World Cup was the last tournament, Martin. The World Cup was the last tournament, and it's just this kind of 8-9 minutes have gone, and suddenly, okay, lads, time for the written press. And the written press, get him where. I was frustrated I hadn't played. The manager's correct in what he said. I hadn't trained brilliantly, said Myler, whose new club Reading are bottom of the championship. My emotions were sky high. The manner in which the game went, you're not playing. First and foremost, you're a fan of your country's team, and they're all my friends playing. The manager said some things to me, yeah, but first and foremost, you'd have to look at yourself in the mirror. Is my club form good enough? No. Are Reading in a bad situation? Yes. I mean, come on. How are all the other teams that we're playing players from actually doing? First and foremost, I need to address myself, which I respect. He was right at the time. I was upset and annoyed. You do seem to see that he was correct. So it seems like Myler had a conversation with O'Neill, they had a fight, and at the end of it...
It seems a mature resolution has been found.
You hope so, yeah.
But is that due to David Myler's maturity, or is it due to Martin O'Neill's maturity? If David Myler had that same confrontation with Roy Keane, would Roy Keane have effed him out of it? Who knows? We don't know. Are we blaming the players here, or are we blaming Roy Keane? Who's too sensitive in this? Who's too aggressive in this? Seems to be the kind of conundrum we're dealt with, because you've got David Myler there, who I think that's an endorsement for man management, no?
Yeah. This bit does slip out in the middle of the press conference, and we'll play the audio of this again a little bit later, as I said. I have the utmost regard for him as a person. I might have a difference of opinion on his ability. That's not the point. For him to take the criticism I gave him in front of the rest of the team was extremely strong. He's a really strong person. Just going to repeat that. I have the utmost regard for him as a person. I might have a difference of opinion on his ability.
He's joking.
He's not.
No?
He's not.
Why would you say that? Out loud in a press conference?
Because it's true. It's true. It's true. That's what he thinks.
But you're not supposed to tell the truth all the time at a press conference. That's not how press conferences work.
I know. Will it affect Ward's Irish future? Absolutely not. The only implication it has for Stephen is if he's fit to play and come with us, and he'll be there. I assume he's apologised for himself, and I think he's spoken to Roy as well. I have no problem with that. It'll only be age and ability which prevents him coming to the next squads.
David Milo's getting roasted, sitting right beside Martin O'Neill. Maybe Martin O'Neill is like to Stephen Ward implicitly, this is how you do it, Stephen. This is how you give somebody a piece of their mind. Do it while you're sitting beside them. Don't go and send a voice message to your WhatsApp group. This is how you do it. And Martin O'Neill is maybe leading the way in telling it as it is.
Yeah, this is madness.
Like, the thing is, it's all quite humorous, evidently, and it's very, very entertaining. And then you're kind of laughing for a while, and then you're like, oh God, no, this is actually terrible. This is terrible for the future of Irish football. This is going to have a legacy where we become the laughingstock of Europe.
I mean, we're pretty much the laughingstock right now. 5-1, 4-1 in competitive games. So tonight's match doesn't really matter in any practical terms beyond a bunch of new players will get caps. Seamus Coleman's out as well, which, you know, it's like, ooh, this could be a paddling.
Yeah. I wonder, does anybody, like the commentary team who are doing the game tonight, I wonder, are they even going to just talk about the game, or are they just going to give their takes on Martin?
You're an effing P, you're a C, you don't even care, you don't want to train. That's how I open my... welcome to Poland.
So it's a corner
to say. You're on pay.
It's a corner for Poland, but let us just remind you of the quotes that were brought up in the papers today.
That's what Keane. I wonder, does he think, well, P's, I'll say's. O'Neill expects Keane and Arter to resolve their differences after a row is the hopeful headline on the top of the Irish Times piece. I mean, he says he hopes there'll be a reconciliation, but it's possible. And then Poland both striking options O'Neill can only envy. On a scale of Keane bust-ups, it's a long way from Saipan. It's true, it is true. It's far more fun than Saipan because there's like an audio reportage. It's definitely more fun than Saipan.
And also, we're going to play Poland in a friendly. We're not about to limber up for a World Cup. That also makes it fun. There's less stakes. It's much lower stakes here. Maybe Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane are like, actually, I enjoy this media circus. Let's keep this going. But then for the next international break, it'll be serious.
Yeah, because we're like, well...
So it's home games, you know.
The GA says that whereas it is open to any proposal for assisting counties with their financial burdens, the payment across the board of travel and catering costs for all counties mightn't be the ideal vehicle for doing so. So the GA accepts escalating travel costs are an issue. This is the start of the GA stories where we you see balloons floated, kites floated that might end up as pieces at Congress. And then Stuart Lancaster was doing press yesterday. I go hard on them because I think it's about winning Lancaster. And McIlroy's putter fails him again as Keegan Bradley has won again. Keegan Bradley is good at the L Golf. Managed to beat Justin Rose, who did end up, I think, doing just enough to become world number one yesterday.
Yes, but didn't actually win.
Poles apart is the headline. Keane ready to reconcile with Arter, says O'Neill. That'll be an interesting conversation, wouldn't it? Roy Keane rocking up at Harry Arter's. Who was the crappy ex-Man United Aston Villa midfielder that he rocked up to his door when he was working under Paul Lambert? The Man United ex-Man United. No, it's not Warnock. He played for Man United. He scored an amazing goal for United. It was like, it's the latest in the production line of young talent coming through at Old Trafford and then never made it. Not Kieran Richardson either. Come on, Tommy. Tommy's a Man United fan. Anyway, he rocked up to his door and...
This is like a really tricky quiz question.
Would you let Roy Keane in? Would you let him into your house?
Yes.
Tom Cleverley.
Oh my God. That was...
He called around to your house after a row.
Yeah.
You letting him in?
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
You got to play hardball at Roy. He'll respect you letting him into the house. That's like... That's what it is. It's all a game of who respects each other the most. It's like he would respect Harry Arter so much more if he just played through that horrific injury.
Most footballers, I think, are talking to the letterbox. Yeah. What do you want? Yeah. I'm just out of the shower. I see you in the changing room every day. Yeah, I know, but
Like, you must understand that I am speaking from a vantage point where Roy Keane will never, ever, ever have reason to call to my house.
Roy Keane storms to Tom Cleverley's house to confront him over alleged bust-up, reports. Irishman not happy over rumours of training ground altercations. I mean, is that like... There was a rumour of the fight, and then, so just to make sure that the rumours were true, he went to... I think that looked like it was from the Telegraph. So the tape won't affect Ward's future Ireland international career. I mean, come on. It just
The
the
fact
killer
that you have
lines.
to write that.
Just the killer lines about age and form. It's like, well, you know, we're getting our excuses in here.
Well, I love the
That
way.
first one was the Indo.
Martin O'Neill is like, he's 33 years old. He should know how WhatsApp works.
Yeah, well, I that's exactly it. How can I trust you to defend a corner when you don't know how WhatsApp works? Here it is. Roy Keane did turn up at Tom Cleverley's house, but he did not want to rouse, says Paul Lambert. So Lambert confirms that it happened. It's always the manager confirming this stuff is, yeah, that's Ward. Yeah, he did show up at Cleverley's. Aston Villa manager Paul Lambert insists the incident has been blown out of proportion after reports that his former assistant stood ringing the player's doorbell for 15 minutes, seeking an argument.
Classic. Would you, like, at what points in that 15 minutes do you say, right, enough is enough? I've got enough courage to open the door.
Well, clearly...
Are you opening the door, actually?
Clearly somebody was in the house.
Yeah, clearly. Are you opening the door?
I mean, you probably do, don't you? You want to see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Of course you do. He's a reasonable man. And then there's like, there's all the lists of people that Roy Keane has fought with. I forgot about Anthony Stokes in 07, like... He signs for Sunderland and then is late for the bus and is like, nah, you can't get on. There's Alan Shearer, there's John Delaney, there's his Man United teammates, there's Alex Ferguson, and then obviously there's the Mick McCarthy one. Do we have those tweets ready to go, actually, about this?
Well, it's ironic that John Delaney's the only relationship you mentioned there that has actually been resurrected. As in, like, you list off all the people there and it's like, well, they're never going to talk to each other again. And you might have thought the same if you list off John Delaney there, but they've got clearly a working relationship. They work under the same umbrella, so...
So one of the things that this has allowed everybody to do is to relitigate Saipan. So here we go. We put this up yesterday. Are you getting tired of the Roy Keane circus? And then it's eyes and circus emoji. Hashtag OTBM. Hashtag CoyBig. Report Keane called Arthur a prick and a wanker. Then the very first tweet we had underneath it was, he never added anything to the setup. Should never have been in with O'Neill. And Delaney hadn't the courage to tell O'Neill that. He not much better either. O'Neill, time for both to shag off. Hashtag OTBAM, says Noel. Why did Conor Hourihane say last week the Keane is fantastic, says Argal, who's clearly a Keane fan. Hashtag OTBAM. Keane let down his country once and now he's offering nothing on own controversy, to a team up to O'Neill to sack him. It was he who brought him in, and if he doesn't, then FAI should get rid of them both. Which is better option for Ireland, hashtag OTBM, says Noel. Straight back at you. Argal, not taking that line down, says, Keane never left his country down. Left. Where is he from? He's clearly from Cork. Keane never left his country down. That manager sent him home. He was then vindicated by the Genesis report. We haven't heard the Genesis report we haven't mentioned once. Good man, Argal. Check what Conor Hourihane said about Keane a few days ago. Back to the Conor Hourihane point. You know, you need to change it up a bit there, hashtag OTBM. Roy Keane, the man, the myth, the legend, says somebody who says they are Roy themselves. Wasn't the original Keane/McCarthy spat due to Keane not playing in an Iran game due to an injury? Maybe Arthur should have screamed, a positive result, a positive result. This is such a joke. Too much going on behind the scenes. Things much change, says Noel.
No, never change.
That's it. I do love the Genesis report. Yeah. QED, Genesis report, been getting them.
I can send you the PDF if you'd like.
We'll come back and do some of the non-Keane stuff later on because this is just too much fun. Polls apart. Beleaguered Ireland could be set for another long night. It could be 4-0, 3-0. A friendly if you're Poland. You want to duff us?
They couldn't be bothered, though, really, could they?
Ah, yeah. I think, like, the Ireland team looks not great.
But let's show you the probable 11 via the Irish Daily Star this morning. We'll get to the Irish Daily Star back page and front page in a moment, but let's show you the probable 11. So, Randolph in goals, Shane Duffy and Kieran Clark at centre half. Then you got Cyrus Christie on the right of a back four, Enda Stevens on the left. Then in midfield, you've got David Myler and Sean Williams holding, Jeff Hendrick in front of them. On the left of a three, up front, you got Daryl Horgan. Up front on his own is Callum Robinson. And on the right of that three, Matt Doherty.
That's exactly. He's known as a tricky winger, isn't he?
That would be the biggest positive of this whole international break, to see Matt Doherty stationed on the right of a front three. Like, that is the moment when we're finally thinking forward. We're looking ahead to the future.
Matt Doherty could well retire from international football if they pick him on the right of a front three tonight.
Why? Do you not love that?
He's a defender.
Does every defender not just love to play up front?
But give him an opportunity to stake a claim.
But he plays on the right anyway.
But like he's clearly like 7th choice at the moment. It's ridiculous. Like even the other night we needed somebody to come on who was going to be replacing a fullback. Give him a chance out there to see what he can do. He's playing in the Premier League. He's like beating out competition where the club have invested massively in the position. He's like, no, I can do this. Like, I'm better than this.
Well, the thing is, they could easily just flip Cyrus Christie and Matt Doherty there in those two positions, considering Christie played on the right of a midfield four.
And that was a big success. But I think that having Myler back in the team will actually help. Like, that will help with some defensive solidity. He might really pull the sort of halves together a bit more and actually have someone to boss them around. The front page of the Times Ireland edition, Roy Keane on the front of that as well. Keane facing calls for sack over player out. I haven't heard too many people call for him to be sacked. Oh, Giles and Brady have done it, have they?
Yeah, they did it on the Emma Dunphy podcast.
All right.
So the Brains Trust have voiced their opinion that it's time to get rid of Roy Keane. And they may have a point. Like it's an awkward one though, isn't it? You kind of just parachute the assistant manager out of there.
Yeah, you can't
like
be doing
that's
that.
a very unusual.
You can't be sacking assistant managers. It's like it's O'Neill's fault and responsibility. You're either sacking O'Neill or you're not. Like you can't be saying, oh, we're going to take this little piece out and therefore everything's grand, the whole situation is gone. If Keane wants to resign, fair enough, but you can't sack somebody's staff member for having a row with people. Like it's just a row. It's just a row.
Yeah.
Right?
Like it is. Like you would think that until the point where players are actually leaving the squad. Like, have you got all the details of what happened is the question.
Tommy says it's not just a row, we've lost 3 or 4 players. There's literally no evidence at this point in time linking the Rice situation with what happened with Keane. There is just hearsay. There is no evidence from anybody who has come out and said it, and O'Neill has denied it not once but twice. He denied it again yesterday in the press conference. Ward is injured at the moment. We clearly saw him pull up with an injury in the middle of that game. Is he our first choice left back anymore if Robbie Brady comes back, or is Robbie Brady in midfield and he's our first choice left back? Maybe he is, but he's not gone from the squad. They're saying that it has no impact on his future. Walters went back because he's injured and because this is only a crappy friendly and we really don't need to see what Johnny Walters can do for us at this point. Go off and get game time at Ipswich. He will show up, I think, until he can no longer run and will still be part of the squad. And so at that point, there's a row with Harry Arter. O'Neill says there's something else going on with Harry Arter. Harry needs to come out and clarify that, and if there is, fair enough, and if there isn't, then clearly it's down to a row with Roy Keane. And at that point, that's a bit ridiculous. The managerial team's job is to get the best players on the field. Harry Arter clearly deserves a place on the bench, if not in the first team, and probably in the first team at the moment. And so at that point, Roy has to eat humble pie and go, yeah, okay, look, that was bad, I shouldn't have done it. You need to come back and play football. But that's it. Are you sacking him over a row with Harry Arter?
Yeah, it's like that's actually it's so true. Like what else is there? But unless there is more there, unless this is tip of the iceberg stuff, but that's all hearsay, as you say. Like is Harry Arter representing the feelings of the squad, or is Stephen Ward's tone representing the feelings of the squad, where everybody's kind of bemused but not actually overly taken aback by it or overly offended by it? It does seem that there is an argument to be made, as you said there, that Harry Arter is almost the outlier here, but like we've got to wait to hear what Harry Arter's got to say first before we give our final judgment on all of this. Surely, like there could be more to it.
Yeah, there could be.
Or else there could equally be no more to it.
This might just be one of the best storms in a teacup ever. A row between a footballer and an assistant manager and a WhatsApp message detailing the row, and that's it. But it's good crack. I think this is definitely on the good crack side of things as opposed to the absolutely rotten state of football in Ireland. Because, I mean, obviously it takes the focus away from the FAI, but they've got a lot of work to do.
It's all good crack until it goes south. Like, and it could turn south quite quickly. And as I said, we're all laughing now until those Mercs are wiped off our face, and we're sitting in Pool D fighting for survival against Gibraltar. Although you can't get relegated from Group D, so there will be no survival at stake.
No Tigers role for Lancaster. Stuart Lancaster has ruled himself out of the running for the role at Leicester. I mean, I don't know. Jordan Murphy is going to be the coach for the season, is what Lancaster said. You really hope that like Irish rugby are locking Stuart Lancaster down in whatever format he needs to be locked down in.
Yeah, that is the second Stuart Lancaster story over the last couple of weeks.
What was the other one?
What was the other one again? It was the England Post, wasn't it? Or going back into the England role or some sort of...
Pretty sure that that's not going to happen, but Andy Farrell was linked with the defensive coach role in England, which, I don't know, would anybody be volunteering to work with Eddie Jones at the moment?
Well, that's the thing. It always gets you a little bit nervous when they have to come out and deny that sort of stuff, because you're like, are we doing everything to keep them locked down? But thankfully, you'd like to think that nobody wants to work with Eddie Jones, and in Lancaster and Farrell's position, they don't want to work with the RFU. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that they don't want to work with the RFU, and that probably gives us a bit more of a bartering chip.
Yeah, and you would suggest that they're the prime candidates to be the Ireland post next time around.
Yeah, true. So there's a career progression here for them. It is Roy Keane, Martin O'Neill, Harry Arter everywhere in the tabloids and in the other papers. Let's just go to the Irish Daily Mail first. I'll say sorry, Keane finally ready for Arter reconciliation. And the other story on the back page here is Mayo move to speed up selection of new boss. They've set a deadline of September 19th for clubs to submit nominations for a successor to Stephen Rochford. The Herald's back page is O'Neill 100% behind Keane. Irish boss predicts Arter reconciliation with number 2. Now, the Irish Daily Star, and it's tab of the morning to you. The front of the Irish Daily Star is this morning's winner. Watergate reads the headline. Shock bust-up claims and leaked WhatsApp tape of Ireland fullback. O'Neill says new account of sweary rant, I love that term, sweary rant, doesn't tally with what I heard, and assistant Keane in bid to clear air with absent Arter. The back page of the Irish Daily Star then is Keane will say sorry, Roy in attempts to clear the air with Arter. And you've got that Giles and Brady. So they're actually telling Martin to axe Roy, so it wouldn't be an FAI directive, it would be Martin O'Neill saying, I've had enough of you, Roy Keane. Leave my side now, I'm getting a new assistant manager.
Would Trapattoni have Sackley and Brady? Under no circumstances, at any point, would Trapattoni have Sackley and Brady. Especially not because he's being told to do so.
Well, that story is actually leading the front page of the Irish Daily Mirror. Boot him out. WhatsApp sensation. Soccer legends demand FAI sacks Keano after shock tape claiming foul-mouthed abuse of Irish players. The back page of the Mirror is sorry will not be the hardest word. O'Neill says Keane will offer apology to Arter over row. It is quite amusing that Martin O'Neill is telling the world on behalf of Roy Keane that he will apologise to Harry Arter. And, maybe if Martin O'Neill is saying there's reason to apologise to Harry Arter does have serious reason to be aggrieved. Like, we've just spoken about this, we've yet to hear from him. But if like Martin O'Neill is, you could never level Martin O'Neill with the accusation that he is a snowflake. If anything, he's got a thicker skin than most other people involved in Irish football. So whatever has been said, Martin O'Neill is reasoning it deserves an apology.
Yeah.
So
that's fair enough, though.
Reason suggests that Harry Arter was right to make his decision.
To walk away.
He's owed an apology.
I mean, maybe he was accused of faking injury.
He's owed an apology, according to Martin O'Neill.
Maybe he was accused of faking injury.
If Tommy outside said something to me and I left, and Tommy said to you, yeah, I should apologise to him, who's in the right and the wrong there? It's the person who says, yeah, we should probably apologise for that, is probably in the wrong.
Yeah, but how wrong?
Okay, now we're getting to complete levels. Here's something we don't know, and how big or small is the thing we don't know?
Well, yeah, it's funny. There's a difference in accounts from what Roy has told Martin and what Stephen Ward has told his mates / the world.
Yeah, that is true.
That divergence of accounts is interesting.
Yeah, no, it is.
He was like, no, that's not what I heard. That's not what I heard. Like, well, okay, so it's definitely what we had all heard before the WhatsApp. Like, this stuff was in the domain, not quite the public domain, not quite as public as recording a voice message and sending it to your mates.
No, that's private. That's literally a private group.
Yeah.
It's your mates who sent it
but
on.
you know that your mates are... I mean...
You don't know.
There was just exactly the same thing happening with the voice messages from the NAC, like, just about 3 weeks ago, right?
No, it was about 3 months ago.
Exactly, but it feels like...
quite slowly.
You feel like, in the public consciousness right now, the NAC is right there. Everybody heard the messages.
Yeah.
I'm just going to record the most explosive thing that's happened in Irish football since iPad and send it to my buddies. I'm going to do that. Hit send. Oh, what have I done? What did I do?
Stop victim blaming, is all we can say.
I'm not victim blaming. There's no victim here. We're all the benefits of this.
Well, we certainly that is very true.
We're all the beneficiaries of this. So there's no victims. There's literally no victims in any of this.
Well, if you could pick one, it would be Stephen Ward, and it's his friend's fault. It's there should be no apology.
Oh, I mean, however Stephen Ward is feeling, I hope his buddy is feeling far worse. Yes, you did end my international career. I trusted you, and then you ended my international career. I mean, you didn't officially end it, but I got like 8 minutes at the end of a 4-0 drubbing in our last Nations Cup game. And, you know the way John O'Shea got to go back and like captain the team for... I didn't get that. And there's no mention of that from me.
I think us as anybody who's proud of being Irish this morning, their ego will have taken a hit when I looked at the Guardian and Telegraph this morning. Neither of them are leading with.
It's ridiculous. What's wrong with them?
My ego has been
punctured. It's as if the greatest cricket player of the generation scored a walk-off century in his last test.
Like, how dare they lead with Alistair Cook? Back page of the Guardian is dreams can come true. Centurion Cook provides fairy tale ending to glorious test career, and that is the same story on the front page of the Daily Telegraph sports section. A fitting farewell. It's goodbye and thanks for the memories as Cook bows out with a century. And that is the back pages for this morning.
Sorry, Tommy, I was too busy reading tweets from Digger to hear exactly what you... Okay, now here's the press conference. I've been long promising you this. I've been teasing you about this. We might just roll straight from this into a bit of audio from Brian Kerr speaking last night. If you pay attention, there's about 5.5 minutes here of audio. The first 5 are Martin O'Neill, and then there's a 30-second suturing of how bored people are with the stories about Brian Clough. Stop doing this. Here you go.
Martin, can I ask you about the WhatsApp audio that came out this afternoon, allegedly detailing the bust-up between Harry Arter, John Walters and your assistant Roy Keane during the summer?
Yes.
What would you like to say about it?
First of all, I don't think Stephen was there. Stephen wasn't actually there, so I think he's just picking up on things, something that we talked about at the beginning of the week. Probably not anything more to really report. I think that differences of what was said. I think I mentioned that to you before. Definitely, as I said to you, confrontation obviously with John and confrontation with Harry. John's fine, absolutely fine. Harry perhaps not so fine, and. But I said to you before, you'd have to ask whether that's the complete reason why Harry's not at the. He's not participating in these games this time, and but I think that I think you probably know that anyway, because I think Harry is. I think that Harry's let that be known to a few people anyway about some of the reasons that he is. Decided not to come.
Did the version allegedly from Stephen Ward tally with the version that you heard from Roy Keane during the summer?
No.
Are you able to fill in the gaps, the differences?
No, it's a nice little conversation before Coronation Street. Really good. No. I can't. I don't think I'm in the position, or nor do I want to be, but it doesn't tally.
From the outside, it might be seen that there is a problem with Roy and some of the players. What would you say to that?
I'd have to say absolutely not. First of all, I think these things are important to say. First of all, the incidents took place at the end of May when we were in camp. So they have surfaced now here some 4 months later for a start. It wouldn't be the first conversation, it wouldn't be the first tete-a-tete, and it certainly wouldn't be the first, if I can call it, altercation between players and staff. I've had one with the man sitting beside me here just 2 days ago. Was it 2 days ago? Friday. I have got the utmost regard for him as a person. As I said to you, I might have a difference of opinion about his ability, but that's not the point. I've got the utmost regard for him as a person, and for him to take the criticism I gave in front of the rest of the team was extremely strong. He's a strong person. He's a really strong person. Now, sometimes you can actually... Sorry, you there? You with me? Sorry. Sometimes I think, as I said to you before, while the game has changed a little bit, hopefully it hasn't changed that much, that there's some things that you can say to a player, maybe using a bit of industrial heavy-duty language at the end of it all of that there, that you think that you can actually take, and go out and prove the person wrong. I've tried to do it, I think, reasonably successfully in my playing days anyway, when I was getting plenty of stick on a weekly basis. But for the half time in the European Cup final of 1980, when the same manager who had been criticising me for a number of years, almost on a daily basis, criticising a wee bit too strong, but overall, nagging, and to give me the sort of praise he gave me at half time in the game was worth it. Was worth every minute of pain. So I think you have to look within yourself as well too. And if you're asking about Roy's criticism of players, let me tell you, this is my responsibility. Totally my responsibility. Absolutely and utterly. As every single kick that the players make, every save that's made, every corner that's conceded, every goal that's scored is my responsibility as a player. So I'll take full responsibility for what has happened there within this camp.
I like that gear though, all the same. It's nice gear, isn't it?
To be honest with you, I wasn't really looking. I was kind of looking into the middle distance, seeing our dystopian future where Irish football is kind of based on soap opera rather than results. And you know what? I'm completely fine with that. I've made my peace with the idea that we should continue to allow this situation to fester for as long as possible, because it's very, very entertaining. And when Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane have had enough, interview people on the basis of how explosive they can be in press conferences, how many fights they can cause in the camp, and basically continue the banter era of Irish football, as I think it should be now dubbed.
We kind of had that after Saipan though, no?
I think it needs another run out, really, no? We've taken football too seriously for too long in this country.
It's time for it just to be a complete joke and treat it like that.
Yeah, I'd be completely happy with that. We can just get behind our club teams instead. Just put money into the League of Ireland, make sure that the clubs here get really good, and we can all support homegrown club football and just let the Irish team just be a joke.
I mean, I realise that you're being facetious here, but, anyway.
Does part of that not appeal to you?
I think that investment in the League of Ireland would be great, yeah. I think that there's definitely an opportunity there. I think that there's probably a business opportunity to get people to go and watch local football that has not been fully tapped into, but we'll come back to that one. To celebrate the opening of BuzzSports 250th shop, we want to send you and a friend to a Premier League match of your choice. Not only will you get tickets to the game, but also 250 quid spending money. For your chance to win, just leave a comment or a question below on Facebook or YouTube, or you can tweet us at Off The Ball, include the hashtag time to play so that we know you've entered. The winner will be announced on OTBAM on Wednesday. Ticket will be subject to availability. So, right. At the end of that bit, he talked about his experience of being constantly criticised by Clough, only for Clough to turn around at half-time in the European Cup final and to shower him with a little bit of praise and how he felt in the immediate aftermath of that. Now, it's not the first time that Brian Clough has come up in a Martin O'Neill press conference. It really isn't the first time that he's come up in a media appearance. You think back to I've got the 2 European Cups to, was it Vieira and the Italian centre-back who was player of the World Cup in 2006, Cannavaro. So anyway, last night, in the midst of the whole debate and conversation, Brian Kerr was on telly on Virgin Media Sport, and he just took a little moment to tell everybody what he thinks about the constant, repetitive discussion of Brian Clough in the context of Irish football in 2018.
Are unsavoury and not the right thing that should be happening around our team. One other thing I'd mention is the number of times that Martin O'Neill goes back to his playing career and the management of style of Brian Clough, I think at this stage is farcical. It's 40 years ago and it has very little relevance to the current requirements of modern management, in my opinion. He shouldn't be referring back to him and how Brian Clough did his business at half-time or how he spoke to the players. The game has moved on now, and I don't think that's at all relevant to this situation.
That's a great photograph, all the same. I mean, it's a great story. Like, Martin O'Neill has had a brilliant football life. Just at the moment, he's having some difficulties with what it means to be an international manager for Ireland.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that you can't learn some things from Brian Clough. You can't learn some things from your playing career.
But you've already learned them.
Exactly. And it's the over-egging of them. It's like if he was mentioning all this stuff and Ireland were winning and everything was going really rosy, like, then you start talking about the Clough thing and you're like, well, that's why things are so rosy, because he's learned from the best, but things aren't, and now we're just getting a little bit pissed off with the repetition on that end of things.
In a couple of minutes' time, we're going to have a wardrobe change, and we're going to be joined by, or unless you had a good night last night, did you? In a few minutes' time, we're going to be joined in the studio by Murchras and Ucalik to look back on the 2018 GAA summer. We're going to be handing out some awards as well. First, though, here's Miguel Delaney on last night's football show, speaking about Ireland's history of allowing managers to stay on for one campaign too many.
It's always felt like every manager has had one zombie campaign where it's all kind of pointless because their effect is run out. It happened with Hand, he probably should have gone before. Charlton should have probably gone after 94, and which that ended so badly at the end of 1995 with all those defeats. Mick McCarthy probably should have gone after 2002, although fair enough, there was obviously so many mitigating circumstances there. And Trapp should have gone after Euro 2012. And it now feels the same, that, I mean, a 5-1 defeat to Denmark, that really should have been the end of maybe this regime, because it did seem at the time something was broken. And it is even, I mean, for anyone that's kind of, suppose, thinks this is, the new way of looking at things, and it's a shame we don't give people time anymore. I don't know whether that stands up, because if you look at basically any other country, or most other European countries, and the way they'll deal with managers, I mean, I think the lifespan of international managers is usually only one cycle, or at best two, which is, I suppose, one European Championships, one World Cup. Mm-hmm. And then there's a natural acceptance. Well, okay, we'll try something else, because there has to be some sort of difference. So I think we're one of the few countries, bar those where you have a kind of a Yogi Löw situation, but we're one of the few countries that allows these things to go on so long and to develop into these, as I said, zombie campaigns. And it's impossible not to think this could be a zombie campaign. I mean, I'm at the moment, I'm quite fearful of 3 or 4 bad defeats in this Nations League.
It's time for us to get into our 2018 award season. We're starting with the MTs. It says here it's a sideline view of the GAA season. Tommy Rooney is actually a frustrated sub-editor from the 1970s Irish Times. Who knew? A sideline view of the GAA
sideline
season.
View. Was there any sub-editors in the 1980s that weren't frustrated?
I think the sub-editor used to be very glorified. They controlled the copy. They could change around the meaning of whatever it was. They were really important.
Yeah, sometimes power leads to frustration, I guess.
I would say the sub-editors of today are even more frustrated.
I'd say, well, there's not many more. So we have 11 awards, because, we might come up with a few more along the way.
We may drop a few.
Yeah, that's also a possibility. Most underrated juggernaut soundbite of the summer, most enjoyable, There Will Be Blood rivalry, clusterfuck of the summer. I apologise for all the little ears out there, I should have done that first. The honest interviewee award, unlucky with the draw and didn't deserve to lose like that. Retro press box food award. Is there an award for Tommy Walsh's missus for all the food that she provided you guys over the summer?
I think she certainly at the very least deserves an honourable mention. Marliese has been very good to us all summer.
Yeah, What's this?
Every once in a while she might provide baked goods.
Really?
Oh,
Every once in a while, yeah. Now, in fairness, we kind of had a little rota. Like, sometimes Tommy would bring something, sometimes I might bring a salad, sometimes somebody else might bring in a salad bowl or something. So we worked it out very well. We're democratic.
So there's loads more, including best atmosphere, and we'll get to all these in a couple of minutes. But the first one is PRO of the year. We've got one each for hurling and football. The hurling one is Mark Dunphy and Clare, but who's the football one?
The football one is Hugh Lynn from Roscommon. Congratulations, Hugh.
He's with us on the line to accept his award. Hugh, how are you?
I'm brilliant. Any day you win something, you have to be happy, haven't you?
Yeah. So explain, Murchras, how come he's won it?
Well, Hugh Lynn won the award very basically, and I have to say the standards aren't that high for to win PRO of the year.
No.
No offence, Hugh, but when I say the standards aren't high, Hugh far surpassed the standards, because all we want as journalists is for PRO to every once in a while answer the phone. Not only would Hugh answer the phone, he would give you information, and if he said he had to call you back, he would. And he would give you directions, and he would give you team sheets on time. They never gave any dummy sheets. They just did what was on the tin. And things like Wi-Fi codes, he had them ready. Simple as that. And in fairness, Mark did the same as well in the hurling.
Hugh, congratulations.
Thanks very much.
How did you get so good at the stuff Murchras was talking about there?
I'm a consumer of sports news. I know what people want, so I mean, isn't that my job to make sure that everybody else gets the information they want as well?
Well, you see, some PROs feel that they're kind of gatekeepers and nearly treat journalists like we shouldn't be told anything. You know, they don't see themselves as information givers, but information keepers. And that's, I think, a big difference. And the best thing about Hugh, though, as well, is that he always made sure when you got there, did you have a cup of tea? A happy journalist means happy copy.
Well, regardless what it is, if you look after people's tummies, they look after you. But the job was made very easy. I had Paul Staunton, Kevin McStay, Shane Curran. I had 3 very good football managers who absolutely appreciated the demands of the supporters to have as much information as possible.
And the other thing too, actually, sorry Hugh, I didn't want to cut across you there, but the other reason I think is very important to point out as well is that Roscommon summer wasn't that all plain sailing. It was turbulent, and Hugh still managed to do his job, which I'd imagine, Hugh, was quite difficult at times.
Oh, absolutely, but you're not in it for, we say, if it's going to be good, there has to be an odd bad day. I'm hoping that next year is going to be fantastic, because I've all the bad days behind me.
In fairness, though, that was definitely one of the things that came across, was that there was a sense that you guys did want to help everybody, that you were very open and honest. Like, remember, this is a group of players who allowed cameras in last year, you know, and actually had a great season when the cameras were there following their every move. So the players seem to get that actually this is a way for the supporters to find out more information about them. The manager seemed to understand that from the get-go as well. So it does seem like there's an openness and a transparency about the organisation.
Absolutely, but we say, like, let's be honest, we have absolutely nothing to hide. We want as many people involved as possible. We're a small county. I mean, we say it's just 60,000 of a population. We want to try and ensure that as many Rossies as possible are involved with Roscommon. We want to ensure that everybody knows that everything we're doing is, we say, we're striving to be the best that we can be. And that's basically what we're doing. We're trying to make sure that people see our message. Tomorrow there's going to be, or even today, there's going to be big news later on today. We're launching a big draw, and hopefully people get in behind us and support us on that and win a house in Dublin. But the whole thing is that it's about Roscommon, making sure that Roscommon people and the wider community know what's happening.
Do you have any bigger news, maybe, about Roscommon as well?
I'm sure there will be lots to talk about Roscommon in a few days' time as the process to find a new manager will start. It hasn't started yet, insofar as there's a county board meeting tonight, Monday, because I've nearly started in the morning, so I can't do this live with you. But so we're starting our recruitment process tonight at the county board meeting, and we put in place a committee to select a new manager. So Lacuna J, there'll be a new manager by the end of the month.
What are you going to miss the most about Kevin McStay?
Great question. I'd imagine, personally speaking, I'd miss his openness. I'll miss the chats. I'll miss the professional delivery of things. For example, teams. I used to have the team. I could have the team 8 days before a match, and we famously named our team on a Sunday at 2:00. We say exactly 168 hours before throw in of the following week. So that's the big thing with I miss Kevin's organisation. Everything was done to a T. Everything was on time every time. So whatever you needed, you got it, and you got it on time. There was no messing. That's the big thing I miss.
Hugh, good stuff. Congratulations, and thanks very much. Keep up the good work.
Thanks a million.
It's Hugh Lynn there, the Roscommon PRO. Dummy teams, I don't know what the point of them is anymore. Surely, like, everybody has kind of thought through the potential that maybe the Dublin team that's named won't be the actual team that starts.
Absolutely, and I think all it does is just frustrate fans. I mean, it's not fair. People have bought a programme. There's been money changing hands. It's supposed to be more transparent there. I understand why sometimes managers wish they didn't have to name teams as early as they did and whatever, and sometimes changes do have to be made, but I don't see any advantage in naming a dummy team.
They should just go full soccer at this point. Name your squad early in the week and then name the team an hour before throw-in, and that's your actual team, and that's how it's actually going to be set up.
Yeah, as opposed to the team that marches around in the parade and then there's a change. So best match atmosphere of the summer. So this is a single game that had the best atmosphere.
But before we get on to that, can I just voice my displeasure at the fact that Leona Twist got overlooked for PRO of the year this year?
She did not get overlooked. She got an honourable mention from me on this.
Oh, she did. Sorry, honourable mention, as well as Mark Dunphy in the hurling. To be honest, I've never dealt with Hugh Lynn before. He seems like an absolute gentleman, but Leona Twist would have got my nomination. That's all I can say on the matter. I think it's a horrible overlooking.
And she's not even a Kerry woman, is she?
It's true, actually, yeah. It's a good
And
point.
that's how good she is. Kerry man still thinks she's the best.
Yeah, well, Kerry needed to win something this year, so I was hoping that we might have been hero of the year.
So best match atmosphere was something that Kerry involved in here.
Yeah, Kerry technically do have a win here. Like, obviously, I had the great opportunity this summer. I travelled the country to lots of games, not all of the games, but the game that kind of took my breath away and that I went home all summer thinking that was a great atmosphere was the day Kerry played Monaghan in Clones. It had everything. We had sunshine, we had a great crowd, we had the amphitheatre experience of Clones, we had a great game that literally came down to the wire. I suppose the only thing wrong with it was we didn't have a result at the end. But what we did have was, it was a draw. So you could argue maybe that wasn't the fairy tale ending to what was a brilliant day. But when people talk about magical football matches, that's what we should be talking about, I think. So that's why I went for that one.
Yeah, didn't really lead to anything in the end, though, the magical ending from our point of view.
One of the greatest goals of all time. What are you talking about?
Hopefully it's got a wider legacy where in a few years' time it's like, remember when David Clifford did that amazing thing in Clones? Whereas obviously we're sitting here in 2018, it's kind of tunnel vision at the moment where it's like, yeah, well, we didn't even make an All-Ireland semi-final despite the fact that he scored that was the most dramatic moment in all of the Super 8s, and they didn't even progress with the Super 8s. So
but it was a great game, though. And a great day.
Yeah, like the game was lost and won.
I was a bit surprised it wasn't a sellout. Like it wasn't full or nearly like absolutely jammed to the rafters, because there was definitely space behind both goals, was there?
There was, yeah. Now there wasn't much space left, but I presume part of the reason for that is that Clones is so far from Kerry. And I know Kerry people do get slagged for not travelling to matches, but when you think about it, if you live in Carsiveen, you're in the car for over an hour just to get to Tralee. So to head up to Clones, that really took huge investment.
Yeah, I do always say that I'm very lucky that I live in Dublin, that I get to go to all the Kerry games.
Yeah, but loads of
that's the main reason. But I think another reason for that as well, it was non-restricted, as in like whatever ticket you had, you could just go into one of the stands. You didn't have to go behind the goals. There was no tickets for behind the goals, so everybody just jammed into the terraces. So it wasn't as bad as you say.
This one is a bit of inside baseball. Press pack feeders of the championship. Who fed you the best?
Well, this is my self-indulgent award, literally. And the reason I gave this to a county who's already won one minor award, I think this will mean more to them, and that goes to the Limerick Hurlers. And the reason they get it is because, as we all know, people particularly don't like press nights. They don't want to be dealing with us. They've got better things to be doing, but they come in and sometimes you get fed, which is great, especially if it's been a long journey. But Limerick, there's a bar. They went far above the bar. They gave us a menu. We had tablecloths. You had a starter. You had a main course. I think it was a choice between beef and turkey, and you had dessert. And somebody went around and asked, would you like a top-up?
Very
Amazing.
good.
Oh,
yeah.
Beef and turkey is quite a selection, actually. Is that normal?
No.
It's quite, obviously beef and salmon is the usual.
And where is it? Was it like...
It was in the Castle Troy Hotel.
Oh, nice.
That's where they had the press night, and then you went into the restaurant in the side.
Very good.
And it was lovely and very much appreciated, because most of the media now are based in Dublin. Had to travel a long distance to get there. It was an evening do as well, which meant you had to leave Dublin really early. And that kind of stuff is really appreciated.
Yeah.
And it's not buying us off. I know people say, she'll say that because it was the best meal. But no, really, it makes a huge difference when you're working hard. But it has to be pointed out. Kilkenny have been doing this for years and have been doing it really well, and I don't know how I'd go if Kilkenny had played Limerick in the final, because when you go to Kilkenny for the All-Ireland final, you get to go to Langton's and you get steak and chips, and not only do you get steak and chips, but they ask you how you like your steak.
Ah, nice. I'm literally mouth-watering at the moment.
Yeah.
The steak in Langton's.
If you're going to be the best, you got to learn from the best. That's like absolute down to the minutiae from Limerick right there, to learn from Kilkenny. I also heard the Tyrone breakfast was quite good.
I heard it was. I wasn't there because that was the day the morning after the hurling, when I was cruelly... where I was cruelly sent out to City West amongst jubilant Limerick people. And
as a Galway woman.
Me and my bitter Galway tears in the corner.
It worked out all right, right?
Look, in fairness, I won't begrudge them. They had a good time and they treated me very nicely.
Your next award, please.
My next award is the Helping the Damsel in Distress Award. And as a girl, I am physically weaker than most of the press pack who go in there. I do carry a lot of gear because I shoot videos. I carry a big ISDN box, which is how we broadcast. They're heavy. And it's nice to get a little bit of help every once in a while. I'm all for equality, but I also like help when it comes along. And anytime I show up to Pearse Stadium, I don't know if they hear me coming, if they hear the groans or whatever, but they're running down the stairs, they're picking the stuff up and they're bringing it up and help me set it up. And that makes a huge difference. It actually speeds up my day a lot as well. I can speed maybe 15 minutes as I'm setting things up, and it's just really nice.
This is Pearse Stadium in Galway?
Yes.
Very good. Did you ever leave an ISDN box on a bus or anything like that?
No.
Never left.
And you haven't lived.
Never left thousands and thousands and thousands of euros worth of equipment on a bus in your first week here, the first time we ever sent you out.
No, who did that?
It was definitely the third time. It was definitely, and like I can't even remember why I did that. It was pretty stupid.
I have
Nobody
left
gave
my
me help,
tripod
that's
though.
why.
I'm very, very bad at leaving my tripod behind, and it's usually when I'm in the car, and then I realise, and it's a good tripod, then I realise I have to walk back. The place is usually locked up because I'm usually the last person out, trying to find the man with the key to let me back in again to collect the tripod.
All right, and it's there.
Usually, yeah.
Right, fair
It's
play.
good thing you didn't leave a tripod behind. That would have been a disaster. Like that's definitely the worst piece of equipment you could definitely leave behind. Far more expensive than an ISDN line.
I'm not sure I agree.
The Retro Press Box Food Award.
Yes, the Retro Press Box Food Award goes to, obviously, again, Press Day. The press boxes, I know people when they go to matches, when they watch the games, you know, some stadiums they prefer more than others. You know, for example, in Pearse Stadium, the Supermax truck might be nearby and you can have your snack box, which is something the fans really look forward to. For us, certain press boxes you look forward to more than others, and we've given this one to Semple Stadium because you get sandwiches, but not only do you get sandwiches, you get slices of perfectly sliced
There's the
Swiss
picture,
roll.
I think. There you go.
Wow.
Always in a line, always a choice between the
It's the
chocolate
Barn
one
Brack.
or the sponge one.
From John Duggan.
Yeah, and the brack, you get the brack as well, and plenty of real butter as well.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez, that is...
Butter on the brack.
Yeah, there's eating and drinking in it.
That's a heart attack right there. Number 6, unlucky with the draw. Didn't deserve to lose like that award. Maybe they did. I think you might be pandering to our producer here. What's this one?
No, I wouldn't be accused of pandering to any producer. This one goes to Meath Football and Andy McEntee and how they crashed out of the championship against Tyrone, which feels like a lifetime ago now, early in the summer down at Páirc Uí Chailteann. It's very obvious looking at you that while you're very proud of your players and how they performed, you're very angry and you're very emotional. I don't think I'm going too far by saying that right now.
No, that's fair enough. Yeah, that's a fair comment. Look at where do we go now? Where do we go now? We have to wait until next January before we play another game. That's the killer. I mean, we had the same with Waterford last week, but they have another game next week. They have a chance to put it right. We don't. So we pay the ultimate price.
Total note.
That's really sad. I think it's there's something wrong in the structure when somebody is out that early in the championship. It's not right.
Especially after putting it up to Tyrone.
And don't forget the controversial refereeing decision as well that cost them a potential free, which was very scoreable.
Like that cost me the place in the All-Ireland final.
Yeah.
That could have been Andy McEntee.
Oh, you're such a troll.
Shaking Jim Gavin's hand after losing by 7 points in the All-Ireland final, but instead it was Mickey Hart.
Oh, you're such a troll.
Well, you know, I'm not saying they would have gone to the All-Ireland final, but...
They should have beaten Tyrone. There was no, like, that was a shocking refereeing decision. It should have, yeah.
The structure there, I mean, somebody after all that hard work for a championship shouldn't be out that early.
Yeah, they're the cruel, especially when you get that close as well. They're the cruel ones.
It's a cruel cut. It really, really was.
He is around for next year, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been no... You kind of lose track of what some counties are doing at this point of the year, so they'll be back. They could be one of two teams to perhaps beat Dublin in the next 20 years.
Meath
or Kildare will beat Dublin in the next 20 years, will they?
No.
20? Not in the next 20 years, no?
What? On the basis of the last 20 years?
Well, they've beaten them in the last 20 years.
Yeah, barely. And at the start of that. Anyway, let's move on from all the ridiculousness. Another total mosh. So this is the most honest interviewee award.
Yes, and we go back to County Roscommon for this one, and we're giving this award to Kevin McStay, who spoke to us after they were beaten by Donegal in the Super 8s. To be devil's advocate, the linesman may say he didn't see it, or that wasn't brought to his attention on time, and he might also say, well, perhaps Kevin McStay shouldn't have gotten into my space. It looked like you did lay your hands on him, which we all know is against the rules.
Yeah, well, if he didn't see it, he was the only one in the stadium that didn't see it. It was a completely obvious call. Kieran Brannigan, I imagine, didn't see it because he was the wrong side of it, but the linesman was facing it. But yeah, I've come across a lot of this officiating, you know, over the last 2 years, and some of these linesmen are incredibly precious, and they like to play the hard man when they're on. It's not very pleasant when you're trying to manage a team. All you're looking for is a bit of civility and a bit of decency, but they just dismiss you like you have nothing to do with the bloody occasion. I put a lot of time into it. Might have been agitated more than I should have been. Like we're all trying to get the win, and a little bit of courtesy from officials. Most of them find it very easy to be courteous and help out any way they can within the rules of it, and some of them then go off on I don't know what's the term I'm looking for, but yeah, less than generous with their time, let me put it that way.
we could say that possibly happened in the white heat of battle, though looking back on it now, would you say you regret your actions, or do you think what you did was the right thing for you and your team?
I apologised. I apologised at half time to the referee. Apparently the ball struck him in the back of the head. That was absolutely an accident. I was throwing the ball back to where I thought the free would be, and then I realised someone said, no, he's called half time, which, you know, I was annoyed, so I came in immediately to apologise. I'd never do that purposely. And by that stage he had said that I'd been aggressive to him, and he was complaining to the referee about it, and I suppose the referee had no option then but to take some action. So it's the one thing this association just can't seem to get right, is officiating, and you know, good officiating where the officials are all tuned in to what's going on around the place. Like, there's an awful lot going on in a football field these days that isn't even been refed at all. It's just let to the players to sort out.
Yeah, it was funny. Obviously, I was at that game, and I remember watching it as it happened and thinking, this is the most un-Kevin McStay like Kevin McStay event I've ever seen in my life.
That's a fair point.
You know, and the fact that when I actually did that interview with him, it's a pity we didn't have a video of it. He seemed emotionally and physically drained. He looked like a man who was just exhausted, you know, who'd done 3 days work without a break type person. He was just so drained by the event, and I don't know what happened to him. It's like that flash of, just said there, white heat. He just lost all control. It was, but the funny thing is, when you talk to him, he's nearly kind of, sure, it's done now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's mad, the whole refereeing. Like, so the Andy McEntee story ultimately is a story of somebody going crazy at a referee on the pitch, and like, he's emotional about the defeat, but I think he's also emotional about the fact that he lost it in front of everybody and in front of his players as well. And he obviously got a lot of criticism for that, and McStay, like, rightly gets criticism for the end of that, and he gets a suspension for it too. But like, they're also part of the solution to this, is them having more respect for the mistakes that are made by the linesman and the referee, and fostering that culture where the referees and linesmen feel that it's okay for them to have a relationship with the players. It's you know, he says they act like hard men. That's very interesting that you kind of, that conversation starts to happen, and you put that with the interview that Eamon Fitzmaurice, where he was talking about, you know, that there's a linesman looking at the referee going, sure, if he makes a mistake there, I might be in next week. I'd never...
That's mad, isn't it? Yeah, like, that's actually...
So they're not teams. They're not teams. They're individuals, like little islands within the whole system, trying to boost their own careers. There's a madness. There's a strain of madness going through the whole... how the rule book is interpreted, what's in the rule book, the bits that we're all happy for people to ignore that are in the rule book, and then the other bits that are like, oh, that's a free. It's like... It's a very difficult game to referee.
Hugely difficult. I'd have lots of sympathies for referees. I'd never do it. But at the same time, I think the time has come now for a proper review to be done on this, because there's too many careers. Like, think for Andy McEntee went out far too early for his liking over a refereeing decision. Kevin McStay is gone. Possibly, for all we know, emotionally exhausted by the whole thing.
Derek McGrath's gone.
Derek McGrath, yeah. Another one.
You know, like, I mean, I think that their injuries probably weren't going to clear up in time, but who knows? Maybe, you know, they win that game, they go on a run.
They didn't have any incentive in their last game. It was against Cork, wasn't it? Their last game of the round robin in Munster. So if they had an incentive in that game, they lost by only a few points in the end. They might have actually won that game, and obviously the incentive might have come after getting that correct call, if it had been a correct call against Tip. So yeah, it's like the two referees at the start, as Fitzmaurice said. That's probably the first step that's necessary, because it's a really tough game to referee, let's not forget, unless there is more stringent rules put in place and there's more definitions put on the rules, but that's kind of hard as well.
I would say it's even simpler than that. Just get the umpires and the linesmen to actually do their job.
Wire them all into the same headpiece and go, what happened there? What are you seeing there? Tell us what's going on. Like,
too often we've seen the umpire saying, I didn't see it, or the linesman, and it's right there.
And broadcast that. Like, let everybody hear it, and let everybody hear the abuse that they're taking from the players.
Yeah.
3 weeks in, the players will stop abusing them, because it's like, oh, I'm embarrassed by what I said on TV last night. Like, all that stuff's pretty easy to sort out. So little ears, if there are any, stick your fingers in them, please. Clusterfuck of the summer. There are many opportunities here. I am annoyed that Newbridge of Nowhere is not on this.
Newbridge of Nowhere worked out perfectly, didn't it? For you and your people.
Well, for justice and, you know.
So I would suggest that clusterfuck needs to end.
For the GAA. People forget that we were actually, Kildare were on the side of the little guy in this.
Kildare were literally the little guy. And they won.
Yeah, but I mean, before the correct decision was made, it looked like it was definitely going to be the clusterfuck of the summer.
But it wasn't.
I would argue, well, we'll never know because we don't know. Had the decision not gone the other way, would they actually have gone to the field? Because don't forget that was the
That
threat.
would have been amazing.
Yeah, we don't know. So that was
Mayo would
why.
have been the All-Ireland final, and who knows what would have happened.
Well, the problem with poor Mayo is, God knows, if they had to go and kick that ball over the bar, who's to say it had gone over?
Oh, zing.
I'm just saying, they just have that unlucky streak and the hard luck story. You just know that possibly would have been the photo we'd all be talking about.
Yeah, what would have happened then? It would have been a replay in where? Newbridge?
Gaelic grounds.
Yeah.
So what wins this?
Well, I decided that since because Kildare actually did get to play and went on and won the game that night, I decided to go for a team that looks to be more or less destroyed by clusterfuck, so to speak, and I've gone for the Mayo ladies football team. It is just, what has gone on up there is so wrong, and then the tangents about Carnacon and everything else, it is just not right. At the end of the day, women trained to try and play football, they should have the support of their county board. They should not be thrown out of a championship because they withdraw themselves from the county team. Last I checked, it was a voluntary organisation. You volunteer to play, you volunteer your time. That means you don't have to do it. And for them to be thrown out of the championship, just wrong.
Yeah.
And I know the appeal and everything went on, but
there's layers to this story that obviously are going to eventually, you would hope, emerge. And who knows what happens at the end of that.
absolutely. And when questions about welfare are being brought up, that has to be explored and investigation has to be done. But at the end of the day, this is a team with great potential that went nowhere near it this year. They were in All-Ireland final last year. What has happened is actually, it's more than sad, it's nearly treacherous to football in their county. I'm
pretty sure that when the Cork hurlers went on strike, that processes were put in place to mediate between teams and county boards into the future. Like there's an off-the-shelf solution ready for somebody to come along and say, yeah, you need an independent mediator to sit there, listen to both sides of the story and then make a public pronouncement, and everybody has to be willing to go with that, and we'll be locked into that, and then for the good of the sport we'll all move on, because ultimately you suspect most people just want to play games.
Absolutely, you would think so, but for the good of the sport, and I feel that has been forgotten about here, and far be it from me to bring my Galway biases toward this, but I think it's a perfect example again of some Mayo bitterness going on.
Oh, zing, zing, zing. Twice in a minute. Most enjoyable, there will be blood rivalry.
Literally, in this case, after Paddy Murray getting a gash over his eye at full time yesterday, I went
From a photographer,
yes. Cork and Kilkenny in the Camogie. Is there a better rivalry in Irish sport at the moment? I can't think of one if there is.
Well, there's not one that's so openly naked about the hatred they have for each other.
Absolutely. And isn't it great?
The photographer was an agent for Kilkenny, let's face it. It was just like, Anne Downey was like, if we lose this game, you get on that photographer's bib. You take that camera. I know, yeah.
Yeah, he came, it was like all kind of, I should know the correct terminology after my 1 week of medical school, but loads of goo over his eye.
I think there's like a photo immediately after the impact where he's kind of like this, and there's a photo of him, which meant that the photographer walloped into him and was like, I got to get a picture of this, and succeeded in doing so. So well done to that photographer.
Well, maybe that photographer was really angry about how the game ended and felt that Cork robbed that away from Kilkenny with that really, really, really questionable free on the 60th minute.
It's mad, isn't it? That, like at the last minute you'll make this kind of, oh, I made a mistake, I didn't mean to blow it, I'm going to throw it in. See, is that what you do, like to get yourself out of it?
I don't know, but I remember actually it so happened that Joe came to me just a few minutes after that, or not even a few minutes, and I saw it happening in real time. But you know, when you're watching a game, you don't know, you don't have the action replay, and you don't know. To me, it looked like nothing. The press box all jumped up. Everyone said that's not a free. Obviously, I didn't want to be that person saying it certainly wasn't when I made a show of later that night on the Sunday game. So I said it looked like it wasn't, and Downey was incensed.
Yeah,
and it just
she was still angry afterwards.
Very much so. Yeah.
Like, look, it's good for the rivalry. It's bad for Kilkenny for this year, but they won't have any difficulty, you would expect, getting numbers at training. Soundbite of the summer?
Soundbite of the summer goes to Turlough O'Brien in Carlow, who I'm sure under no circumstances pre-prepared this statement that he made.
If you looked at the match and you saw, 10 Tyrone men behind the ball, as often as you saw them in the Carlow half, you can see how difficult it is to play, direct football. A lot of people seem to think that Carlow playing a terrible style of football, but some of these critics, these pundits, these ex-players, and let's be honest about it, Joe Brawley's had a right pop with the car for the last few weeks, but there's a lot of holes in Brawley's arguments, and a Brawley with holes in it isn't much use.
What kind of holes?
he's talking about, Cardiff being a defensive team, but look at the scores we got over the National Football League. We're one of the top scoring teams in the National Football League, one of the top goal scoring teams in the National Football League. So I think those facts stand up against any argument about how we play the game.
Possibly, except today, I think, was it 2-3 points from play, and so, the rest came from frees?
Yeah, look at why did we get frees? Lads are foul gone in, so they're scoring opportunities anyway. So you can take that wherever you like, but we're happy, we're very proud of our lads.
Absolutely, and it is, at the end of the day, people might complain, but defensive football where you're winning, or at least keeping up with teams, is probably better than pretty football where you're being beaten off the pitch.
We were very, very competitive. I don't know what you people are thinking but you know the rules of the game. We play within the rules of the game, so we do. And we play football to win. We're not here to entertain Joe Brolly or the likes of Joe Brolly. If he wants to come down here, Joe Brolly was forwards coach, by the way, with Antrim in 2008. They were in contention for promotion. 7 points against Waterford, 8 points against Tipperary to lose promotion from Division 4 under Joe Brolly's brilliant tutelage. So there you go now.
And you're being promoted under your tutelage, so you must be doing something right here in Cardiff.
That one. And in 2008, Cardiff at Waterford, the Tommy Murphy Cup, 8-10 to 7 points were beaten. We're here today playing a top team. We're both in Division 3 and we're very proud.
There you go, Turlock. The Brolly with holes in it, he was like, well, mic drop, and then you're like, no, hang on, I've got another question. It's like, oh shit.
But he had to actually back that up.
Yeah. What do you mean? But I just said my line. This is supposed to be.
This is where you're supposed to applaud.
Yeah.
Standing ovation, and
supposed to drop the mic at that point.
That was good. Except Brolly went on Twitter to deny that he was ever the forwards coach officially. That he did a bit of. So just for the sake of balance, there,
And as a journalist, I should have gone and investigated that, but I was far too lazy.
And now, in fairness, he had obviously done all the work, thinking, I've got some good sources here to tell him what the crack was. And then the last one here is most underrated juggernaut.
Yes, and I have preemptively given this to Dublin. I hope I'm not giving them the commentators' hex. The Dublin ladies football team, they've been knocking on the door for years. They got to the top table last year. They won the All-Ireland. Obviously, they're up against Cork, but just based on the standard of the ladies' football that I've seen this summer, if Dublin played the way they can and the way I've seen them play, they should beat Cork on Sunday. They are a powerful machine. They have it all. They have strength, they have scoring, they have accuracy, they have speed, they have great mental agility. They are just a force to be reckoned with, and they're really inspirational. They work wonderfully as a unit together, and the way they're coached from top down, bottom up, is sublime.
When do we split them in two? When does that conversation start?
When they win their 3 in a row.
So next year?
Possibly.
So we can postpone it for a year. Maura Trassett, great stuff. Anything else from the summer of 2018 that's going to live with you forever?
Lots. I wouldn't even know where to start. These are just some of the highlights, but I think one thing I should point out as well, possibly an award we should have, was the nicest team to deal with and just nice lads, and that would have to go to the Clare Hurlers. They're lovely people.
I thought you were going to say OTB AM there for a minute. I thought it was like nice to sleep with it off the ball, but anyway, next time.
Good stuff. Maura Trassett, the 2018 MTs. We'll put them up on social. If you want to get involved, then you can give us your abuse at Off the Ball on Twitter or at Off the Ball AM. In fact, if you want to just do it for the show. Thanks.
No, this is one of my favourite stories in the book, really. It's one of those where I tried my best to keep my feet on the ground. Even when I was a kid, I was coming through, and I think when I first made it, I tried to keep it low key. I bought myself a nice Renault Megane. I was going to go for the convertible, but I decided against it because I thought it'd be a little bit too flash. But when I got to Liverpool, I thought, right, I'm doing okay now. I was playing for England at the time. I was playing for Liverpool in the Champions League and stuff. And I bought myself a nice Aston Martin. It was never me. I should never have bought it. For starters, getting in it was difficult. Once I did get in it, I just didn't feel like it was me ever. People were looking, and I didn't want to be that person. I pulled up. I lived in Cheshire at the time. I pulled up at the lights alongside Roy Keane, of all people, and I had the shades on. I think I was listening to some Speed Garage. My arm was out the window. I was having myself, and then Roy gave me that look that he's given many of people in his time, and I felt about that big, and I literally, as he sped off into the distance, I think he had Discovery at the time. I was sitting in this car, looked at myself in the mirror and thought, I need to get rid of this. And I literally got rid of the car that week and took a big hit on it, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Speed Garage, that was the other bit of that maybe doesn't get enough comment. That interview going out in full tonight on the radio on Newstalk. Joe and Peter Crouch talking about Peter Crouch's new book. Tune in from 7 o'clock to Newstalk this evening to make sure that you hear that full thing. full of some good anecdotes, and some other Irish players also feature in it. Speaking of Irish players, let's go to Poland and join Philip Quinn of the Irish Daily Mail this morning. Philip, 24 hours on after another interesting, entertaining soap opera, 24 hours in Irish football history. Have there been any further developments on what happened yesterday?
Well, not that I'm aware of this morning, because I'm in the Old Town here, in a hotel in the Old Town, and the team are, I'm not quite sure what hotel they're billeted in, but it's a long time since journalists actually stayed at the team hotel. That practice stopped with Mick McCarthy, funnily enough. So we're kind of out of the loop a little bit, but we'll be picking up the thread of the story today. No doubt there'll be more. Actually, we might actually have a football match today. I was just saying to a colleague last night, we actually, I think in all our stuff at the papers this morning, I don't think anybody actually mentioned that there's an international match on today. It was all, as you say, a soap opera. And actually, Martin O'Neill made a reference yesterday to Coronation Street in this press conference last night. And I remember thinking, Coronation Street is not a patch on this soap opera.
It does feel like it is a little bit of soap opera that ends with the football match tonight, and then the stories kind of disappear because the squad breaks up and everybody goes back to the day job of reporting on the rest of the football world, and that actually this storm, the 24 hours that we've been through, is probably as squally as it's going to get for Roy Keane.
I suspect that won't happen actually in this case. You're right. In theory, it should happen. We play the game, we pack our bags, everybody goes home, and we wait until 4 weeks' time for the October doubleheader. But this is going to bubble along, I think, for a couple of reasons. A, because O'Neill said last night that Keane was going to show some act of conciliation, contrition, apology towards Arthur when we get back. So we're going to be pressurising the FAI to find out when has that meeting happened, has it happened, what did Roy say, what did Arthur say, is Arthur coming back? So that's one element to it. And then you have the Declan Rice element to it as well, because again O'Neill has said that he expects Rice to give an indication, a firm indication in the coming days as to his intentions international-wise. Now maybe Rice is having a look at all this and thinking, do I want to be part of this soap opera or not? So there's a couple of things that are going to bubble along. And football-wise as well, if tonight goes badly, and this Irish team, I think, is going to be the most inexperienced team that I've ever seen play a senior international. If it goes badly, if Lewandowski decides to turn on the style on his 100th cap, 100th appearance, and we get turned over badly, there will be ripples looking ahead to the doubleheader, and it could get difficult for Martin O'Neill. But look, it's been an extraordinary couple of weeks. I just said to a colleague last night, O'Neill named a squad on Monday, fortnight ago, which was 15 days ago, and he announced that Rice wasn't in it, and there was confirmation of the altercation with Arthur, and it has been non-stop ever since. I've never known anything like it, and this isn't a work. We're not going to. Well, sorry, I was in Saipan. It's almost being Saipan, like almost, but we're dealing at things that are at a much lower level. Nations League and a friendly in Poland don't compare to the World Cup finals. But the stories that have been breaking out of the camp in the last 2 weeks have been just relentless and compelling.
Yeah, I mean, I think the audio, the fact that it did the rounds so quickly from Stephen Ward, and that everybody knew what was being said, and that this kind of confirmed the rumours of the bust-up with Johnny Walters in particular. Once that came out yesterday, it was interesting to see what O'Neill's strategy was in the press conference, and it seemed to me mostly his strategy was to filibuster, to talk about Stephen Ward, and then to talk about other altercations that he had. So the Myler thing kind of was a useful example of actually this is what happens in football. Players and managers fall out all the time, and it's not that big a deal. Like, did he do a good job at quelling any of the anger or the issues yesterday?
Opinion was split on that last night in the press corps. Some people thought he rambled. He does ramble. I thought he recovered reasonably well after a poor start. It was difficult for him. You're right. He was prepped. They knew by midday yesterday that they'd heard the audio. There'd been a flurry of phone calls. Keane rang on Ward, and O'Neill rang Ward, and Ward obviously felt let down because the audio that he gave he felt was in trust. These things happen. You have to be very careful what you say nowadays. But O'Neill handled himself reasonably well. I thought on balance he did. He told a couple of rambling stories. He tried to throw in a few little one-liners. But a colleague said to me last night, I thought it was interesting, if Gareth Southgate's assistant had spoken like that of an English player, English FA would have probably called for his head. English media, I think, would have probably called for his head. O'Neill, used things like industrial language, and if you can't say that, well, then you can't say anything. And he does come from a time when, managers did put players in their place, and they still do. I'm sure they still do. I'm sure they use unparliamentary language nowadays as they did in the past. But the key issue here is that Roy Keane continues to be a difficulty for Martin O'Neill. That's the bottom line. Again, the press conference yesterday was all about something that stemmed from a Roy Keane row. If the Ward audio was about Roy Keane, it came from there. And Keane is a problem for O'Neill, whether O'Neill likes to acknowledge that or not. His loyalty is immense. It really is. It's very impressive at one level, and he is adamant that Keane is doing a good job for the Irish team.
Yeah, just to kind of just briefly,
I'm not so sure that people around the Irish team would necessarily agree with that. By the way,
well, just briefly, if you're Martin O'Neill, do you mind answering questions about Roy Keane when actually the question should be about 5-1 and 4-1 and the fact that you've got no significant plan, that the team aren't performing like a team who you've been in charge of for 5 years? Is there an element of this where he's like, actually, you know what, I can easily handle questions about that, spin a few yarns about my former assistant and the great era that we had playing under Brian Clough? Is there any element of this that O'Neill is like, well, actually, you know what, I kind of prefer answering questions about you than I do about my crappy team selection?
I actually think probably not, but he did dodge those questions last night because they weren't asked. I think there wasn't any question about the match last night. If this was just an ordinary game, an ordinary friendly in Poland, which the FAI played many, many times over the years, that in itself was worth a special subject on Mastermind. Why did the FAI come to Poland? But if this was an ordinary humdrum friendly, I think O'Neill would have been much more in the spotlight about those two last results.
Yeah.
Whereas the Keane thing enabled him to deflect that and get away from it. He had to deal with Keane though last night. He couldn't have come in and said, and I actually thought last night he might have come in and maybe issued a small statement and said, look, the FA are aware of an audio, we're handling it from within and making note of the comment. But in fairness, he did actually take questions on it, so I give him a bit of kudos for that. But there was no talk with the game.
Last thing, is that Stephen Ward wasn't part of that squad, so he didn't witness any of this firsthand, and O'Neill was at pains to point out that he had a different version of events. He wouldn't go into that. That was the bit that it was a conversation before Coronation Street.
He was quite vague. He just said it didn't tally, and he just said, no, that's not my version of events. He's getting Roy Keane's version of events.
Yeah.
And again, in relation to Ward wasn't in those squads, so he was only picking up hearsay from fellow players. So there is a little bit of confusion as to exactly what was said by Roy Keane. But we do know that Keane is going to offer some form of conciliatory gesture towards Arthur. And let's see, does Arthur get back in the squad for the next games? And let's see, does Stephen Ward get back in the squad? O'Neill said he would still consider him based on ability. But I do think that they do feel that Ward has let his guard down, and by implication, he gave the media a feeding frenzy yesterday.
Philip, good stuff. Thanks very much. Enjoy the game tonight.
Thank you.
Phil Quinn on the line from Poland there. Obviously, it has been a fairly remarkable 2 weeks when you think about it in those contexts. Squad's name. Ooh, Declan Rice not in the squad. What's going on here? Ah! Boom. Another bomb. Boom. Another bomb. Boom.
Yeah.
A WhatsApp audio message? What?
I'm not going to lie, when I picked up the papers on that Saturday morning, probably 2 weeks ago at this point, and Martin O'Neill had done those interviews talking about an altercation and saying that, Declan Rice may or may not have a decision to make, I didn't think it would explode into the thing that it has become. I didn't think that either of those two stories would run and run and run and run, and we just don't know when it's going to stop. Is Declan Rice going to make a decision on his future before the end of the year? Maybe not. Is he going to make a decision on his future next year? Maybe not. Maybe
I think
the Declan Rice thing just goes on and on and on.
Anyway, I do think it's an important point that Ward wasn't in the squad, so obviously this is what he's being told by person or persons unknown.
I've got a feeling Stephen Ward's sources are quite good, Ger. Why wouldn't they be?
What's the story, Roy? If you've got a problem, say it to my face. Don't effing walk off. He was like, I do have a problem. You're not training. You're getting soft. It's no wonder Dyche doesn't play you. You're effing always looking for an argument like you are now. No, Roy, says Johnny Walters. I mean, kudos to Roy Keane for his bravery in going head-to-head with Johnny Walters, because I wouldn't. Johnny Walters is a silent assassin. He will wait, he will stare you down, and he will kill you. That's what happens, I think. And he's one of my favourite Ireland players of all time for that. It's like, you will be in physical pain if you play against Johnny Walters in a match. He will kill you.
Unless you've got the aura of invincibility like Roy Keane to
some I just think, here it goes, right? No, Roy, you're the one trying to cause an argument. And apparently they were squaring off to each other and having it off and had to be pulled off each other. All the lads were grabbing Johnny away from him. Johnny was going to kill him. That's the consensus of the eyewitnesses to the Roy Keane versus Johnny Walters spat, right? Roy brought up something about when they were at Ipswich together. They had a falling out as well. You're threatening me again, John, like you did at Ipswich. And Johnny was like, yeah. Are you going to be a shithouse again and send me my fine in the post rather than say it to my face?
More of that, please. More calling people shithouse.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. We had heard that there'd been an incident and that the word shithouse was used and that it was used to Roy Keane by Johnny Walters. I mean, you're like, fair play to Roy Keane for going up against Johnny Walters. Fair play to Johnny Walters for calling Roy Keane a shithouse.
Yeah.
And putting it out there that Roy didn't actually just ban him or fine him to his face, that it was like, what's your home address there? Why do you want my home address? You sending me a card? No reason. I didn't send your home address, Johnny. What's your home address? It's like, whew, and the letter arrives and goes, I'll find you 2 weeks' wages. The story goes that like Johnny Walters is taking off his watch in the office because he goes into him and says, I want to get a transfer. I'm getting out of this crappy little backwater that is Ipswich. I mean, he loves Ipswich now, but like that's the story at the time. And then he's taking his watch off and that they're head to head. And then he finds him and sells him. Okay, and they made a lot of money. It blows over for a few days. And then they fly out to France. And in France, Johnny's sitting bored in his hotel room. I was going to text Roy. You know. And it's not like, you up?
It must have been a flat stage in the Tour de France that day. There wasn't anything good on TV.
It's not a Netflix and chill invite.
No, that would be an extraordinary twist in this tale.
It blew over for a few days, and then they flew to France and listen, Roy, I'm in room, whatever, if you want to come up. You've obviously got something on your mind that pisses you off about me because it's causing tension in the squad. Let's talk it out. Roy writes back, nah, I'm just here to help players, people like you. And then this is brilliant. People like you, ... Just stay out of each other's way. You don't need to reply to this message. You don't need to reply to this message. It's like, I'm having the last word. Don't even try. You have to send back an emoji, don't you? Like just a
thumbs up,
clown face.
Thumbs up, or just reply saying K. And that would have really kind of pushed him over the edge.
Oh my God.
The door then.
Then the rest of the bit is the Harry Arter. Like, Harry Arter is actually on the treatment. He's getting treatment. In this story, he's getting the treatment. He's to climb off the treatment table where he's being treated for his injury.
Is the physio in on this?
I don't know. Who else was in the room? That is the question. And then who was in the corridor?
There is a pile of evidence, anecdotal evidence, admittedly, building up here that Roy Keane just loves the last word. Like that fine in the post was like, you can't get me back with this. The don't reply to this message is quite a straightforward way of saying I'm getting the last word on this. And it's obviously something that he enjoys. Some of the great debaters just have to get the last word, and maybe that's what Roy Keane is. Maybe he just loves winning arguments.
OTBM is live with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with the choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. We hope you've enjoyed the show this morning. I have enjoyed the show this morning.
I'm living the dream. Like, we're all living the dream as Irish football fans right now. This is as good as it's ever going to get.
It's interesting too that Phil Quinn thinks this will continue to, like, there's a fairly easy navigation from Martin O'Neill's, like, look, Roy, this is becoming an issue. You need to solve it. You caused it. Go meet Harry Arter and make sure he's back in the squad. That fixes that, right? That's what happens then. Declan Rice comes back. Suddenly everybody's delighted, and this whole period disappears, right?
Yeah, like, well, you know, do we want this period to disappear?
Well, if you're Martin O'Neill, you do. You're like fed up with this. You want to win some games, see the qualifying campaign out, play Spain in Dublin, have that roar for the national anthem, and get beaten 5-1. That's exactly that's the dream scenario.
What's the dream exit scenario? That?
Yeah, we win our way through and, you know, die with our boots on 5-1 against the Spanish.
Maybe if we die win it, if they go
Luis
out winning,
Enrique versus Roy Keane, the battle that was supposed to happen in 2002.
Yeah, well, that would be amazing. Just before we wrap up, we just wanted to bring one other story to people this morning. Didn't really kind of touch on anything else. There was a thing or two happening on the soccer front. But Mike Quirke's column in the Irish Examiner is very good. It's on page 7 in the sports section. The right people in the right roles is more important than how much cash you have, because there's been a lot written over the last 10 days or so about Dublin, about the amount of money they get, about games development officers, about administrators, and about just the cash cow that is Dublin GAA, and how that is, in the opinion of a lot of people, directly responsible for why they've been so successful. But Mike Quirke this morning is separating those two things. He's had quite a cold look at it and says that it's possible to be very unhappy with the favouritism Dublin have got financially down the years, particularly between the years of 2007 and 2017. And it is also possible at the same time to hold that opinion, and also hold the opinion that this Dublin senior football team is outstanding and they wouldn't have been beaten in the 4 in a row otherwise. Like, it doesn't matter to do, about the money. So he
I know it's ridiculous to compare eras, but would this Dublin team win a 3-match test series against the Kerry team?
Of the 70s, 80s?
Yeah.
But they win a 3-match test series against Kerry, Tyrone, Armagh.
They beat Armagh. They beat Armagh, yeah. I think they do.
They probably do.
I think they beat Tyrone 2-1. I think they beat Kerry 3-0.
Really?
Yeah.
I disagree. I'm like, it's a very valid point.
Tyrone beat Kerry 3-0.
But that's over like a multiple year period. But that's like saying, Stoke City always had the betterment of Arsenal at the Britannia Stadium.
It isn't. It isn't.
It
really
is.
isn't.
It is. Like,
you took us down a tangent. Go on.
You took us down a tangent. You're the one who brought this up.
My point is that, like, that's the level they're at. Like, this team is great as individual players. So taking away the money, and you put the quality of footballer they have and the quality of footballer that Kerry had, and you put those two teams up against each other, who wins? And that's a fair judge of, like, it's impossible to accurately predict, but it's a fair judge of the quality of the football that the team are playing, which is kind of slightly underreported a little bit.
Yeah. So, like, just to talk about the exact figures here, he talked about the €16.5 million that Dublin have received between the years of 2007 and 2017 for games development. Kerry, in the exact same period, picked up €700,000. This is coming from Mike Quirke, so naturally that this is the county he's got most of the knowledge within. So he talks about Kerry's 5 in a row in the minors as good people doing good things, the right personnel in the right places, and good development. And it's not necessarily due to an influx of cash or an injection of cash. So he cites Kerry and the fact that they've got 5 full-time games development administrators. So they visit around 30 or so primary and secondary schools, 10, 15 clubs, etc. Whereas quite often many Dublin clubs have their own games development administration. So automatically the money's pumped into the county, you get more games development officers, and therefore there's more coaching for kids in schools, and that's great. GAA is thriving in Dublin because of that. That doesn't mean that the senior team is succeeding because of that. These two things are kind of separate. In the long term, it might do, and that's why people are saying, well, the rich are getting richer here and something needs to change.
There is a link though, right? Because that's your raw material and this is your end product. And if you are good quality inputs equals good quality outputs.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're actually seeing that quite yet. Like, I think it's going to get more terrifying unless something changes. And I think Mike actually kind of is in agreement with that to a certain extent. He thinks that Dublin, because of this money, have now become so successful to a certain extent. They are so successful now, so they've become a cash cow. They're able to generate their own levels of commercial revenue, so AIG, etc., where they're almost self-sufficient when it comes to commercialism, that the GAA should say, actually, we should tilt the scales entirely when it comes to our own funding that's going to Dublin. They're getting so much, they're this massive cash cow. Or alternatively, as Mike Quirke suggests, the commercial revenues become the shared pot. And that is what gets distributed evenly throughout the country, because ultimately more games development administrators in different counties, more kids getting good coaching, like GAA surviving in certain parts of the country. Whereas we established yesterday with Niall Moyna, it's on death row in... Well, maybe that's a bit dramatic.
Yeah, the game, the senior inter-county and the club match is on death row, but they can fix that with a couple of fairly simple rule changes. It might take a couple of years. But
that will feed down to development as well.
But I think far more important is good quality coaching, good quality people and doing the right things. Like, the quality of the club football matches does not affect the thousands of children showing up in the clubs in Dublin week in, week out. Like, they just want to come.
Not yet.
No, like, I don't think it ever will, because the kids are going not because the game is like a sensational game at the end. It's because it's a well-run, well-organised sport for your kids to play. That's why, like, we're sending our kids, we want them to play. It's a good thing to do. It's not because Dublin are amazing at intercounty football.
No, but the fact that intercounty football is good to watch, that it is something that's beamed into your home every week.
Well, it totally helps.
It helps.
Yeah, it absolutely helps. You can totally divorce that, I think, from the funding needs to be rebalanced, and everybody agrees that. Even the GAA have started to say that they agree that. But would Kerry be happy if their Kerry sponsorship and their O'Neill's deal was actually helping Carlow football?
Well, that's the thing. That is the big hypocrisy here. Ultimately, when people like us from Kerry actually talk about this, is that we're pretty well funded. We're one of the lucky ones, and we've got a very good setup. You compare it to Dublin, and Dublin is literally probably the only example you can pick out
but Dublin
where Kerry
also,
can feel a little bit aggrieved.
Dublin also needs all those games promotion officers. It's an expense. It's a drain on their resources to have so many kids that they have to service.
Well, Mike makes that point as well.
Whereas you guys only have 120,000 or 180,000, whatever the population is, that you can pump those and hothouse. There comes a point where having that many people is something that you have to service, and then you need to be good at getting the funnel of the talented individuals.
Well, they are servicing those individuals better than Kerry are servicing their individuals. The one games development administrator per club is a far cry, far better.
How many kids are at that? How many? What's the contact hours?
Well, the contact hours per kid and per the amount of people in a club varies from club to club, obviously.
Sure, but there's an average figure, right? And that's the figure that should be compared with everybody around the country. Dublin need more money because they have more people. Because they have more people and they need more money, they're going to end up having more good players.
That goes without saying.
But it doesn't go without saying, because it's clearly part of the conversation that gets misunderstood. It's you're giving all this money to Dublin to make them really good at intercounty football. You're actually not giving them the money to make them good at intercounty football. That's it's a natural byproduct of having the desire to spread the gospel of Gaelic games into the biggest population centre in the country. There's a nuance around this that isn't they put the Dubs on drugs, on financial doping, just to get Dublin to be successful at intercounty level. They didn't. They put the financial stuff in place
to
make sure that there was a massive amount of GAA members who will help to sustain the organisation. A byproduct of that is a complete imbalancing of the senior championship.
Sure, or you could look at it the other way and say that the reason why they did that was that people aren't playing foreign sports, so to speak, that more people are playing. And you know what, maybe that has a positive reaction, and the actual intention was to stop the Garrison games taking over. But you know what, if it has a good outcome, if kids are playing GAA in huge numbers, and you can't complain with that. The thing is, all people are calling for here is just a little recalibration of the scales here in certain respects, that there are elements of the finance that can be redistributed. And
yeah, totally.
It's not about a Kerry versus Dublin situation here. It's just Mike Quirke happens to be from Kerry. That's the evidence he's got in front of him.
Last opportunity to enter this competition today to celebrate the opening of Buzz Sports' 250th shop. We want to send you and a friend to a Premier League match of your choice. Not only will you get tickets to the game, but also €250 spending money. For your chance to win, leave us a comment or question below on Facebook or YouTube, or tweet us at Off The Ball. Include the hashtag time to play so we know you've entered, and the winner will be announced on OTB AM on Wednesday. That's tomorrow morning. So make sure you use the hashtag time to play, and we'll know that you've entered. Tonight on Off The Ball, the NFL opening weekend review with John Gonzalez, Andy Lee's preview of Triple G against Canelo. That one I think is going live this afternoon. And you'll also have Peter Crouch tonight, his exclusive ahead of the launch of his book. All of that coming up on the radio at 7 o'clock. Make sure you stay tuned to offtheball.com for updates and details of everything that goes on in the world of sport today. We'll see you tomorrow. Good luck.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000